Well, I have some really, really great news to share with you guys today. This is a special Sunday for me because a personal friend of mine, a mentor, a pastor who has been very involved in my life, and really I have him to thank for what God is currently doing in my life. I would say in 2005, I first walked into South Hills Church when it only existed in the city of Corona. And my wife and I, we walked in and we fell in love with South Hills Church. And the reason why we fell in love with it was because it's always been intended to be a place where anybody can walk through the doors. Whether you grew up in church and you were a part of, church your entire life, like myself, or whether you were new to church and you had never been to church before and you're kind of checking this whole church thing out and heard about God and heard about Jesus and how ultimately Jesus can make a difference in your life, and you came to church for the very first time to give it an opportunity. South Hills was a space that was created for anyone to walk through the doors, whether you were still trying to test the waters or whether you were all in your relationship with God. And the reason why is because 27 years ago, God put a vision and a passion inside of someone's heart to create a space where anybody can belong. Whether they believed or not, anybody can belong. And the space that we create, that we call the perfect place for imperfect people, had that vision, that direction from the very beginning. And so what I want to do today is I want to introduce you to the person that ultimately God used to start this church a little over about 27 years ago, with a place and an intention where you can connect to God at whatever space you were. That's hard to do. It's really hard to create a church for everybody. As easy as that sounds, it's not easy. And someone took a risk to listen to God's voice. Someone took a risk to make sure to follow the obedience to God, even though they really had no idea what it was going to do and if it was even going to work or not. But Pastor Chris and his wife Laura, they were obedient to God's call. They listened to God's voice. They risked it all. They emptied out their bank accounts. They moved into their parents' house and just took a risk for God. And here we are over 27 years later, benefiting from that decision of their obedience to God. So if you can do me a favor and put your hands together for Pastor Chris, our founding pastor, who over 27 years ago created this space called South Hills Church.
Thank you. Good morning. We on? Hello. You never close your... Okay, good. Righteous brothers there. Hey, thank you so much, Pastor Moses and Jill. And you guys are so blessed. A few years ago, my wife and I, we started South Hills Church. I don't know where my wife's at. I know she's right back over there hanging out eating a donut. We started the church 27 years ago, as Moses said, and we started in Corona, California, and God's did some awesome things. It's been amazing. And a few years ago, we felt like God was kind of shifting our life a little bit, and so now we coach pastors and rescue churches, and still involved with South Hills, but said, "Hey, Moses, you're going to be the lead pastor from now on," and he said, "No, I don't want that," and so we argued about it for 20 minutes, and now he is. And God bless you. And every time he has a problem, I'm like, I don't know how you're going to solve it. Deal with it. But I love Moses and Jill very much. Love their kids, and very much a huge Camacho fan, and love working with them. And I'm believing God that we'll continue to work together for years to come as God puts our hearts together. So it's awesome to be able to be with you guys. How's everybody doing today? Come on now. I think church should be the best place to be all week long. And a little bit about me. That's my wife back there. We've been married for 33 years. And my beautiful Mexican wife. How many Hispanics do we have here? Come on. Yeah. Come on. I've been to the family reunion. You're a lot louder than that. And we've been married for 33 years, going to be 34 in June. We have two amazing children, and then we have this third one. No, don't play. Can you imagine how rude that would be? And then we have two granddaughters, and a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. They are absolutely... How many grandparents do we have here? We have grandparents here? Anybody? It's the most amazing thing on the planet. It is way better than parenting. It's God's gift to you for you not killing your own kid. That's really what it is. I was holding my granddaughter recently, and my adult son's like, "Dad, it's like you love her more." I said, "No, it's not like I do. I do." Let me be very clear. You had a good run. It's over for you. But it is awesome to be able to be here. What a joy it is to be here at South Hills Costa Mesa and be able to hang out with you today. And I'm excited about jumping into God's Word. And we're going to go there in a minute. But if you got a Bible, you can go there now if you want. John chapter 5 is what we're going to be looking at. If you don't have a Bible, next time at a hotel, get one. They're free. I steal them and I sell them on eBay. It's a side hustle. But in John 5, we'll look at that in just a moment. So several years ago, I had the opportunity to go to Costa Rica with a good friend of mine, and we were going to go and minister there. Like we were doing conferences and speaking at churches and all that for like 5-6 days. There was one day we had completely off. We realized it the night before. We went back to the hotel, and I used that term loosely because it wasn't all that nice. But I said, hey, man, we got tomorrow off, but we got tomorrow night off. I go, what do you think we should do? He goes, I don't know, man. Let's ask the lady at the front desk. So we go to the front desk, and said, hey, what would you do? You got the whole day off here tomorrow. She goes, oh, if I were you, she goes, you must go to the Sarapiqui River and go zip lining. And I was like, zip lining? She goes, yes, at the Sarapiqui River. And how many have ever zip lined before? Let me see. How many have done it in a third world country? Very different. Because here in America, we use cable. There, they use dental floss. It's very different. And so, and she said, you should go to the Sarapiqui River. And I said, well, what's that? She goes, it is where they filmed Jurassic Park. And I was like, man, that sounds amazing, go there. So sign us up. So we sign up. She goes, come in the morning, and they send a bus, and it'll pick you up, and all of you will go. So this bus picks us up at like 6 in the morning, and it seats like 65 people. And it's me and my buddy and 3 other people, and the guide and the driver. There's 5 people on the bus. It is weird when there's 5 people on a bus. And we're going up this mountain, and I'm looking, and we're way deep into the rainforest. And I was, as we were going into the rainforest, I'm thinking in my mind, they're going to kill us. Like, there's no way, we could die here. So we go 2 hours up into this rainforest on a bus. Then, stay with me, now watch this. Then we go 1 hour boat ride and then 1 hour horseback ride. We were deep into the jungle. We finally arrive into this jungle, middle of nowhere, like rainforest, deep in the jungle, and we go to a hut. And they're like, okay, here we go, and they give us the harnesses, and they make sure they fit and all that. If you've never ziplined, basically, real quick, you just go from one tree to the next with one cable, one harness, one clip. And you do a Tarzan thing, and you kind of go like this, and the Sarapiqui River has got ravines. So at some points, you're 60 stories in the air with one harness and one clip. And it was nerve-wracking. Anyway, so we go up there. They do the little harness thing. And I said, hey, he goes, okay, you go with him. You go with the guide. And I said, hey, man, don't we need to sign anything? And then he goes, for what? And I said, well, what happens if we die? Aren't you afraid of getting sued? He goes, oh, you foolish Americans. That's what he told me. He goes, if you die, we leave. That's what he said. You die, we're gone, we're out of here. And so, anyway, so we get on this thing, we're zip lining down. I'm not fit, there's 6th run, there's 16 runs. And you land at the tree, and there's like a platform, and you clip yourself to it, and you're just like hundreds and hundreds of feet in the air. And I'm talking to the guide, the only one out there. And I'll never forget, we're waiting for the other people, and he looks so young. And I looked at him, I said, hey, man, how old are you? I finally asked him, I go, how old are you? And the guide, in charge of our life, goes, 15. I go, what did you say? And he goes, 17? Like that made it better. Now you're 17. So we had an amazing time. We get done. We're done zip lining. We get back on the bus. We start going down the bus. And the bus gets stuck in the mud because the rainforest, it's always raining. And now all of a sudden we find ourselves outside of the bus, and we're all pushing the bus. The mud is coming up. And I'm looking at my buddy like, this wasn't in the brochure. And we're pushing away. And we're sitting there stuck in the mud. It took forever to get out. And I think about that story, and I think about the topic for today and how often you and I can get stuck in the mud, or as I want to call it today, we can get stuck in the wall. Many of us, we do get stuck in a spot where it's all of a sudden we come into this place where we feel a little bit stuck. It's like, man, I didn't think I would be in debt, and I am. I thought my marriage would be better, and it's not. I thought that I would be farther along in life. I didn't think I would still be bitter at that person from 5 years ago. How did I get stuck inside of this wall? And I want to kind of show you real quick. Put it on the screen for me. This is called Life Before the Wall. Say life before the wall. Come on. Okay, this is life before the wall. Okay, now life before the wall is basically, look how happy you are. Everything is good. You're happy, life's going good, maybe you're making some money, your relationship's going good, everything's going good, life's going good. But then something happens, and it happens to all of us, okay? And you're there, and you're happy, life's going good, the Dodgers win the series, whatever you're into, you're good. Then all of a sudden, boom, you get life inside of the wall, okay? That you become an Angels fan, and then all of a sudden, it goes down. Yep, Moses understands. And you're there, and then all of a sudden you're stuck, and you're like, man, why am I in this spot in my life? I didn't think I would still be addicted to that thing. I didn't think that I would still be angry at that person. I didn't think that I would still be upset at that person. I didn't think that I would still not be. I thought I'd be farther along in life. I thought my relationship would be better. I thought my kids would be. And we get to this spot in all of our lives where we get a little bit stuck inside of the wall. And when we get stuck inside of the wall, we basically have two choices. Put it on the screen for me. It's basically this. You have two choices. Now listen, this is so important. You either stay in the wall, that's a choice. Not a good one, but it is a choice. Or you get to the other side of the wall. But remember this, there's no such thing as life before the wall anymore. It's never going to be the same. You either stay inside of that wall or you get to the other side of that wall. One day Jesus was walking in. There was a Jewish festival going on, and they always had this annual Jewish festival, and Jesus walked through these gates there in Israel, and he walked in through these gates, and I've actually been there before, and the gates open up, and then it's like a festival, and he goes over to this area called the Pool of Bethesda, which Bethesda actually means the Pool of Mercy. Jesus walks into this area of the Pool of Mercy, and if you don't know, now listen, this is important. He walks over to this Pool of Mercy that's probably half the size of this room. It's a big kind of pool of water, and there's 5 covered porches. How many are there? Come on, say it with me. 5. Okay, now why the 5 covered porches? Because people would wake up in the morning, they would lay under the porch to get out of the Israel sun, the hot sun, and in Jerusalem, and then they would wait. The Bible would say the angel would come and stir the water. When they would stir the water, the people that were sick and ill, they would wait under the porch, and then as soon as the water would stir, they try to run in there, and if they get inside the water, it could heal them, and if it doesn't work, in other words, they don't get to the water in time, if it stops stirring, they go back, fall asleep, wake up in the morning, lay under the porch, and do it all over again. This is how the Pool of Bethesda worked. So the sick and the paralyzed and the people that were hurting, they would lay under the porch, wait for the water to stir. Now this is where we pick up the story. In John chapter 5, we find an incredible story of a man that was stuck inside of the wall, and where you and I get stuck so often. Let's take a look at verse 1 as we pick it up. Afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. Inside the city and the sheep gate was the Pool of Bethesda. Bethesda actually means what? Pool of mercy. Come on. And with 5 covered porches. Remember we said there was a pool of water, 5 covered porches. Crowds of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, lay on the porches. One of the men lying there, help me out, had been sick for how long? 38 years. Okay, so I want you to think about that for a moment, okay? Here's what's happening. He wakes up, this man, all of them, they wake up in the morning, they lay under the porch, they wait for the water to stir. If it doesn't, they don't get there in time, they do it all over again. I want you to think about Jesus as he approaches this man who's been sick for 38 years. For 38 years, he would wake up in the morning, lay under the porch, and then try to get to the water. Just stay with me on this, okay? He wake up in the morning, lay under the porch, wait for the water. Okay, day 1. Then he tried it again, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. How many of you, after 5 or 6 tries, be like, I got to come up with a different strategy? Because the strategy isn't working for this dude. You know what I mean? 38 years is over 13,000 days. Stay with me. Over 13,000 times, this guy would wake up in the morning, lay under the porch, wait for the water to stir, and not get there in time. Man, I would be thinking, get up with a different strategy, get closer to the water, do what you got to do. But, buddy, what you're doing isn't working. Have you ever thought about that for your own life and for my life as well? Sometimes we get into that point in our own life where it's like, man, I feel stuck in the wall. Why am I still in debt? Why am I still angry? Why am I still addicted? Why do I still have this hang up in my life? Why am I stuck inside of this wall? And here's the reality. Your strategy isn't working. Whatever you're trying isn't working. If it's been a year or 2 years or 3 years, it isn't working. And this is the same thing with this man. And here's the reality. Put it on the screen for me. You can't change your future until you disrupt your present. It's never going to change. Something in the future, if you want your future to change, the present has got to change. Nothing happens. You can't change your future until you disrupt your present. That's what that guy needed to do. Buddy, it wasn't working for you. And I know sometimes, man, we get in a spot where we're a little bit bitter and a little bit angry. And it's like, man, dude, what you're doing isn't working. And we've all been there. I've been there. You know, there's a couple people in ministry life. You know, I always say, man, I love the ministry. It's the people that are difficult. And but I've had a couple people in my ministry that have really, 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 really hurt me. One in particular really hurt me about 6, 7 years ago. I was like, I can't believe you did this to me after everything I've done for you. And I find myself still wrestling with it. And we all get there where it's like, how did I'm still angry. I'm still upset. I'm still in this wall. But you're not going to change your future until you disrupt your present. I've written a bunch of books. No one reads them, but I've written them. And my mom passed a while back, so there's one less copy I get to sell. And yeah, see, that's it. But no, seriously, I've written a bunch of books, and one of them did extraordinarily well. It was called Quit Church. And the subtitle of my book, Quit Church, I've written 8 books. The subtitle was Because Your Life Would Be Better If You Did. And if you're a pastor and you write a book called Quit Church, it alarms people. But the publishers and the agents, they were like, hey, man, we want you to write a book, but we want to come up with a shocking title. So let's call it Quit Church because your life would be better if you did. Now, obviously, I'm not telling people to quit church. I'm telling them to quit their approach to church. Don't go to church as a spiritual checklist in your life. Go all in with God. And I always say, if you go all in, God will go all out. You let go of what's in your hands, he'll let go of what's in his. And so that's kind of the concept of the book. But the title shocks people. Well, it did, because it got everybody all worked up. And I remember when Fox News got a hold of it and they wanted to do an article on it. They did an article. When the article came out, we received over 100,000 email responses in an hour. It was unbelievable, and the book just took off. It was like #1 on Reddit, #1 on Amazon. It was just taking off. It was doing well. And we were on Fox News. We were on Fox News and Friends. We were being interviewed. It was really cool. But please understand, you're like all that for about 11 days, and then they don't care about you anymore. But for like 11 days, it was rocking. And I remember when it was really rocking and it was doing really good and we were getting all these interviews and podcast things. I remember getting on a plane, I think going to Dallas, Texas or something. And I go to Dallas, I get off the plane, I get up off the plane, and I go to the hotel shuttle at like 11 o'clock at night. I get on the hotel shuttle, and there's a couple people in front of me. And there are a lot of people on the little hotel shuttle, but there's 2 ladies in front of me. Now, picture that. It's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I'm tired. I'm just sitting back there returning emails and doing my thing. And these 2 ladies in front of me, I don't know who they are. I've never met them before, but you can tell that they're Christian. And they start talking to each other, you know, and I can tell they're Christian, but I'm just minding my own business, returning emails and texts. One of them says to the other one, hey, have you heard of this book? And then the other lady goes, what book? And then she goes, Quit Church. And she holds up her phone. And I lean over and I'm like, oh, that's my book. And I'm like, this is going to get good, you know? And then the other lady's like, Quit Church? What kind of book is that? She goes, I don't know. Apparently some guy wrote it. Where is he from? Southern California. What's he do? Oh, apparently he's a pastor. And the lady says, and I quote, word for word, he's not a pastor. He's an idiot. And I'm sitting right behind them. And I'm like, all right, lady, come on. And this is going to get good. But they get so worked up. They start talking to each other, and they get so worked up. They're like, okay. She turns around and invites me into the conversation. And she's like, can you believe it? And I'm acting like I don't know. I'm like, what? I'm just back here praying and fasting. She's like, can you believe it? And I said, what? And she goes, this book. She holds it up. She goes, it's called Quit Church, and a pastor wrote it. What's the world coming to? You know, blah, blah, blah. And it was so funny. And then all of a sudden, they're just going off. And they're like, have you heard of the book? And I said, I have heard of the book. Yeah. And she goes, have you read the book? And I said, I'll give you one better than that. I wrote it. And she goes, that's not true. And I know what she's doing. She's looking for my picture. She finds it. She takes the phone, puts it right next to my head to compare. And she realizes it's me. And I was like, okay, lady. And then here comes the apologies. She's like, oh, we're so sorry. Had we known, I love this one. Had we known you were here, we wouldn't have talked bad about you. Spoken like a true believer, you know. We would have talked behind your back like God intended. And but we get off the shuttle. We go into the hotel. I'm standing there. And she goes, so what is the book all about? And I go, it's not about quitting church. It's about going all in with God. Sometimes we get stuck. We got to get to the other side of the wall. The whole thing you're hearing today. And she's like, oh, man. And we start talking. And she's like, hey. She goes, well, I feel a little stuck. I said, why is that? She goes, well, 5 years ago, I divorced my husband. And I divorced him because he beat me almost every single day. And she goes, and right now I live in an apartment I can barely afford. I'm in a dead-end job. My life is going nowhere. And I don't know what to do. And I grabbed my backpack, was sitting right there with my suitcase. I grabbed my backpack. I had a copy of the book, and I said, here, you can have this. And that'll be $16.50, but you can have it. And no, I gave her the book, and I said, here's my email. If you ever need anything, let me know. Fast forward about, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years later, something. And I don't hear from them. Then all of a sudden, I open up my email. I'll never forget. It says, Dear Pastor Chris, I don't know if you remember us. I'm like, oh, I remember you very clearly. I said, oh, I remember you by all the way. And she says, I wanted if you come speak. I think you said you lived in this certain area, and we have a leadership thing going on. Could you come speak? Long story short, I find myself about, I don't know, a month later speaking at a leadership event, and there's about this many people in the room. And I'm up there doing some leadership, and here's what I come to find out. That lady that was stuck in the wall, this is what I've come to find out. She wasn't part of that leadership team. She was the leader of that leadership team. I talked to her afterwards. I go, well, what's happened? She goes, well, when we met on that hotel shuttle, she goes, I realized I was stuck in the wall. And she goes, so I just decided to do something about it. So I went to Bible school online, and she goes, I got my license to preach. She goes, I also finished up my bachelor's. In addition to that, she goes, I've been in counseling for 2 years, and I'm not bitter anymore. And she goes, and I started a home for battered women and men that were addicted to different substances. And she goes, and this is my leadership team. And I'll never forget, she leaned in, and she goes, I got to the other side of the wall. And I think about that moment with her, and I realize that her future would have never changed if she wasn't willing to disrupt her present. You have to be willing to disrupt your present. We all have that because we all get stuck in the wall. I get stuck in the wall. You get stuck in the wall. We all get stuck inside of the wall. And when we get stuck inside of the wall because of the debt or the anger or the addiction or the bitterness or the frustration, or our life isn't where we thought it would be, our job isn't where we thought it would be, we can get stuck in that wall and sort of just kind of accept the way things are. But realize this, it won't come on the screen. You cannot change what you choose to tolerate. At some point, you got to change something in the middle of it and say, man, if I want my future to change, I got to disrupt my present. Now, let's go back to what the scripture says. Let's pick it up where we left off. Verses 6 and 7. This is my favorite part and probably the most important part. Here we go, verse 6 and 7. When Jesus saw him and he knew he'd been ill for a long time, he says to him, would you like to get well? That is a 6-word question. I want you to imagine. Jesus walks up to the dude that's been there for 38 years. He walks up to him and says, would you like to get well? It is a 6-word question. It's not complicated. It's not like, well, in the Greek. It's not like theological. It's just a really simple question. Would you like to get well? Yes or no? Now, what fascinates me is not Jesus's question, although it was really easy. What fascinates me is this, is the man's response. Because stay with me now. It's the man's response that shows why he's still stuck in the wall. Jesus says, and would you like to get well? What's the first 2 words in verse 7? Come on, say it with me. I what? Can't. Okay, would you like to get well? And the first thing out of his mouth is, I can't. And you know what he's lining up. The man's getting ready to line up his excuses. He's about to give you a bunch of reasons of why he can't get out of the wall. I can't, sir, the sick man said, for I have no one to put me into the pool when the water bubbles up. What are the words in white? What is it? Come on, say it with me out loud. Come on. Someone always gets there ahead of me. Okay, listen to me. I can't, sir. Hey, would you like to get well? It's a simple question. The man's response reveals why he's stuck in the wall. I can't. And it ain't my fault. It's someone else's fault. Someone else always gets in my way. Let me tell you why I'm in debt. It's someone else's fault. Let me tell you why I'm so angry. It's someone else's fault. Let me tell you why I'm addicted. It's someone else's fault. It's not my fault. That's what the man was doing. He's like, I can't because it's not, and it's not my fault. He was unwilling to take ownership. Let me tell you something about excuses. Excuses give you the false illusion of removing responsibility. That's all it does. It just gives you the illusion, and we all get there. And this is what this man is doing. I can't. And maybe you've done that before. Man, let me tell you why I'm bitter. It ain't my fault. Let me tell you I'm angry. It ain't my fault. Let me tell you I'm addicted. It ain't my fault. And I am not minimizing at all whatever you've gone through that caused you to be inside of that wall. All I'm saying is at this point, it's your choice to get to the other side of the wall. Maybe someone helped got you in that wall, but it's your choice now, my choice to get to the other side of the wall. I have to make those choices. I've got to take ownership. Remember I told you that a few years back I was hurt by someone that I raised up in ministry, and they really hurt me. And a couple of years had gone by, and I didn't see this individual at all. And just a while back, I ran into him with my car. No, I'm not playing, but I want to do. No, but I walked away from that realizing I had a conversation with him, and I realized I'm still really angry. And it's been a few years. So you're not the only one that may be stuck in the wall today. I'm stuck in the wall as well. I can't figure out, I got to get out. I got to figure out how to get out. Because whatever strategy I have, it ain't working. It's been years. And I'm still upset. I'm still angry. Whatever reason is, I'm still there at that spot in my life. And it all comes down to ownership, the inability to take ownership. You know, I remember quite a few years back, I was at the office, and my wife texted me and said, hey, can you pick up, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, can you pick up some milk, eggs, and whatever on the way home? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I leave the office, at the end of the day, and I go to the grocery store, and I pick up milk, eggs, and all that stuff. And I go up there, and then they ring it up, and they're like, that'll be $25.87. Now, this was 6 years ago. Now that would get you an egg. Not a whole dozen. Don't lose your head. And so $25.87, so whatever. I go, and she goes, the reader doesn't work, the chip thing, whatever. She goes, you got to slide the card. I'm like, all right. So I slide the card, and it says declined. Now, how many of you have ever that happened before? Come on, raise your hand where it says declined. And what do we do? I don't know why. I got so much money. I'm loaded. I did the same thing. This says declined. I'm like, I don't know why. And I threw this one in there. I was just at the bank this morning. Come on, you've done that one before. I don't know and you know what they're thinking behind the counter? All right, loser, get out of line. You know they're thinking that. So I'm like, ma'am, I'm telling you, man, I know there's money in there. Just let me do one. No, you got to go. I said, ma'am, please. And she goes, okay, one more time. Boom, she slides the card. Declined. And that's 2 in a row. Now she says, sir, you got to get out of line. Some kid over there starts bagging up my groceries to take them back and put them wherever they came from. The manager comes over. Now we have a scene. Because the manager's there, and he's like, what's going on here? I said, my card. He goes, sir, you got to get out of line. The line's building up. And, this was in Corona, where we have a pretty big campus, and people kind of know me. Some guy 5 people back is like, Pastor Chris, is that you? That always goes over well. I'm like, no, it's his twin brother, Craig. And so I don't have a twin brother. I just made it up. And so I'm all, sir, let me sign. And the manager's all, no. Just one more time. Let me slide it. She goes, okay, this is the last time, sir. He's like angry about it. And he goes, all right. So he goes to reset it. I'm back here. I go back to my wallet. I look down, and I realize at that moment that I have not been sliding my Chase Bank card. I've been sliding my Chevron gas card. So he's resetting it, and I switch over to my Chase card, and he goes, okay, go ahead. Boom. All of a sudden it says approved. And the manager goes, sir, we are sorry. I said, I hope so. I have a reputation in this town. Now, I would like to say that I admitted it. I didn't. I just grabbed the groceries, I grabbed my receipt, and I was out of there. I didn't want to admit that I was wrong. And although that's kind of a smaller thing, maybe I should have, but it was a smaller thing. I think we do that in the big things that really matter in our life, where we don't want to take ownership of why we're stuck in the wall. We get there, and we do exactly what this guy did. I can't. And someone else always gets it. It ain't my fault. It's someone else's fault. The reason we get stuck in the wall, it may be partly you and partly someone else, but the reason you're going to get out is because today you decide to make a choice. I don't want to live in that wall anymore. I don't want to be that person anymore. You got to get to the other side of the wall. Let's finish up with the last portion of Scripture. And we'll pick it up right here in verse 8 and 9. Jesus told him, stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. Instantly, the man was healed. He rolled up his sleeping mat and began walking. I love this. Now, you may not find the humor in this. I do, because I love sarcasm. Okay, the man goes, I can't, and it's someone else's fault. It ain't my fault. Jesus doesn't even recognize or acknowledge the man's excuses. All Jesus does is just get up and walk, man. Literally, that's all he does. The very next verse, he's like, just get up and walk. It's kind of like, this is what you're doing, this is what I want you to do, kind of a thing. This is exactly, and it's amazing. And I wonder if Jesus, not because he didn't care, I just wonder if Jesus would come and put his arm next to you, right around you today, because he loves you so much, puts his arms around you and says, so, what's going on? And you begin to tell him all the reasons you're stuck in the wall. I got mine. Maybe you have yours. And I wonder if he'd just look at us and say, just get out of the wall today. Just make a choice to get out of the wall. Don't live there anymore. Just get out of the wall. And I think that he would do that, because here's the reality. Put it on the screen for me, is that you don't always have the power to control, but you always have the power to surrender. You can always surrender and give it all to God. A few years ago, I'll wrap it up here, but a few years ago, and turn it back over to Pastor Moses, but a few years ago, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago, my mom passed away. And what happened was, it was, I think in June, the doctor told her that she had 90 days to live. She was feeling sick, and there was just cancer all over her body, all over. And they said, you got 90 days to live. She made it about 60. And it was interesting, funny, because right at the end, when she was about to pass, literally on her deathbed, and we were at the house, and we're all there, and my mom, if you ever been there with someone that's passing away, and they kind of have heavy breathing, and they breathe out, and my mom was like, and then she didn't breathe. She didn't exhale for 15 seconds, and then we all, the kids, my siblings, my dad, we all just start crying. We think that's it, and my mom opens her eyes out of nowhere, and she goes, "Oops, not yet." Literally, right at the end. Unbelievable. And I was like, "You're unbelievable, Mom." Not yet. And about 4 or 5 weeks before she passed away, she was still very coherent, very weak, but very coherent. And I asked her, I said, "Mom," I said, "you look back at the end of your life, or all, and all your life, what are some of your regrets?" And words like college, degrees, career, making a difference in people's lives, those were the things that came out of my mom's mouth. And I think back to that incredible moment with my mom, and I think back and I think, God, I don't want to get to the end of the road of my life and start putting up the phrase, what if? What if I would have got out of that wall on that day? What if I would have went back to school and got that degree? What if I would have learned to forgive that person and got the counseling that I needed? What if I would have got the help I needed to get over that addiction? What if I began to take a little bit more risk? What if I went all in with God? What if, and just to play that scenario of what if. Because for a few minutes, that's what my mom played at the end of her life. And I don't want to do that. At the end of the road, I don't want to do that. I want to know that I did everything I could. And I want to encourage you, I don't know, whatever reason you might be stuck in the wall today, but man, I think it's an amazing morning to say, I don't want to live in that wall anymore. I don't want to live a life of what if. I don't know what got you there to be stuck in the wall. I just know that at the very end of the day, you got to get out, because there's so much more on the outside. Don't live a life of what if. If you're stuck in the wall, get to the other side of the wall. You don't have the power to control everything that's ever happened in your life, but you do have the power to surrender to Jesus and say, Jesus, I'm going in all in with you. You do that, and I'm telling you, things will turn out so much better. Would you pray with me?
South Hills Church, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for watching our service online. Whether you're watching it for the first time or you're watching it again because you enjoyed the service so much from the weekend, I'd like to take a moment and dive into our giving. Every week we give people the opportunity to give back and give to the local church so that God can continue to bless your lives and bless your finances. Here at South Hills, we believe that everything comes from God. We believe that He's the one that chose us and brought us into this world, gave us our gifts and talents and abilities. And I just want you to know that when we give, we are giving back what God has already given to us. If you've ever seen any of our envelopes at a South Hills campus, you'll see on there that it says every week at South Hills, your generosity is giving people the opportunity to live a better story. And there's a scripture on there in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 that says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I want to encourage you today to click down below and set up your giving, whether it's for the first time or whether you're doing reoccurring giving. We have 4 ways to give here at South Hills. 1, you can do it in person at any of our campuses through an envelope. Or 2, you can actually text any amount that you would like to 84321. And the 3rd way is to download our Church Center app. I encourage you to do this one because the Church Center app gives you opportunity to stay connected with our church and your campuses. It's a great tool and resource for you to know what's going on. And the 4th way to give is to give online. You can go to southhills.org/give and you can set up your giving there. Whether you're a guest of our church or whether you are a member of our church, or whether you simply just like to watch our services, I encourage you to trust God with your finances so that He can bless and anoint your finances and you can be trusting God in this journey of living life to the fullest. I love you and thank you for watching our online service today.